Is this it? This is the video. This is the video. Okay. All right.
Is there the fallback option at the end of the day of removing all the restrictions and, okay, you can just mix and match and you can switch this stuff much more freely?
Yes.
If we need to pull that ripcord, it exists.
There it is. Okay, so that's what it's from. See,
Okay, everyone, it is time for serious business today because we're going to be talking about hashtag pull the ripcord, which is, well, something that's really been going on within a...
See, you know Bellular wants us to take him seriously because he's wearing glasses, right? I mean, it's like, if you're wearing glasses, you're just automatically smarter than the person that's watching. It's just the way it goes.
Lot of the Warcraft sphere lately,
yeah,
and it refers to what I think is really the single most important thing to get right before Shadowlands.
Yeah.
2 months away from the launch, very much just under 2 months away, and time is running out. And a number of very large problems still do exist. So, what is hashtag pull the ripcord? Well, basically, it's what the community, parts of it, have rallied behind. And it's based off Ian Hazzikostas, the game director's statement on
Counselor,
his
thanks
lengthy
for 5 subs. I
interview.
appreciate
It was
that.
more of a conversation with Preach.
Yeah, I remember
Ian
this.
said that Blizzard could, quote, pull that ripcord at any time and allow players to swap between their Covenant abilities.
Imagine that.
Hear that for yourself. It's 49 minutes and 50 seconds into Preach's video. Now, if you're not aware, a ripcord is that thing that you pull to release a parachute. And yeah, basically, right, that's, I'd say, the best possible term for this situation because Shadowlands is rapidly approaching.
And I think it's actually a really it's a very illuminating analogy or like metaphor to use, because like pulling the ripcord is like pulling it's a parachute. So you know what happens if you don't pull the ripcord? You fall down and die. Like you're parachuting down or you're landing and you just boom, you hit the ground, you die. So I think it's actually really a great analogy here, great metaphor.
The question is, should Blizzard pull that ripcord before a core part of their expansion hits the ground at speed?
Yes, they should.
Now, behind this hashtag, there is some community catastrophizing, which is a little bit frustrating, but I think it is also, yes, one of the last things holding Shadowlands back.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree with that.
Let's explain
100%.
the issue. This is the hashtag that sort of encompasses all of the Shadowlands fears. But really, there are surprisingly few fundamental issues with the Shadowlands expansion, and that is a bit of good news. Covenants, conduit switching, the GCD, the Moz design, and a few unhappy classes.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say Shadowlands has a lot of positives. You know, I complain a lot about the expansion. I say a lot of bad things about the expansion, etc., right? But most of them are centered around Covenants being dysfunctional. That's what I really don't like. Everything else besides that, I've been pretty much fucking positive about, I would say, for the most part.
That's most of it. Now, the unhappy classes, that's being worked on slowly, as you will have seen if you've been watching our news videos, and they're doing a bit for the GCD problem as well. Conduit switching and Covenant ability locks, though, those are the parts where Blizzard have
thanks for
put
5
their
subs. I
foot
appreciate
down
that,
and they've, I think, a bit more dug their heels in. Blizzard are, I do think, though, falling back on the same mistakes they've made for the last 2 expansions. Not listening to players who are trying to preempt issues. And every time this has happened before, those issues have arose, and they have done,
just like Azerite and
significant damage to the game. Now, the core problem is Covenant choices. Choosing a Covenant locks you into the signature ability of that Covenant and the class-wide ability. You can switch, but there is a significant penalty for doing so. Now, the general goal, right, for the player is to find the Covenant that they like and to devote themselves to that Covenant. And then to go down their renown path, which is basically the weekly thing you'll be ensuring you're getting on your characters. And that'll get you some power, cosmetics, and of course the campaign of
the power is the problem.
Now, the thing, of course, is that Blizzard have tied player power to this via the class ability. And picking one locks you out of the other 3, ostensibly. Now, the class abilities are very different, being both thematic to the class and the Covenant. Now, some of them are a bit boring, yes, but almost all of them are at least useful additions in some cases for your classes and specs. And at a glance, you can instantly tell that some of them are better than the others. It is really just that simple. I think anyone who is trying to say that's not the case is basically just being disingenuous. And I don't mean this from a 1%er perspective. There just are...
there are going to be some that are just way better in a lot of situations. It's like it'll be a situation where like one is good on 2 bosses, another one's good on 3 bosses, and another one's good on like 8 bosses. And you just go with the one that's good on most bosses. That's what I think people are worried about.
Abilities you would want in Mythic Plus, ones you would want in PvP, and ones that you would want in raids. And certainly if you've looked at, say, the Night Fae, I think they're maybe the single Covenant that has just the most issues of their abilities being kinda naff in loads of situations for loads of classes and specs. Now, what's then more hard, though, is we've been talking about this on a class basis. It does, of course, get more and more complicated when you consider how good your class-wide Covenant ability is for each one of your specs, because different Covenants might have the abilities you want for different specs. Now, there are already pretty major discrepancies. They are very visible at a glance on the forums. Blizzard made a forum post asking for specific feedback on specific spec and ability combinations, and they got just that. You know, loads of rankings per spec and per content.
I can't imagine playing Night Fae. Like, I really, really hope that Night Fae doesn't give me the best damage. Like, I do not want to go Night Fae. Please, Blizzard, do not make me a fairy. Do not make me a fucking fairy.
Type even, that just do show you the problem at a glance. And really, as you go through that, it's kind of like there for everything. And it's basically the situation, and I can say this, if you pick the Covenant that you want aesthetically, there's an extremely high chance that you will be notably worse equipped in parts of the game.
Yeah.
If you're a Demon Hunter and you pick the Night Fae and you want to do DPS, you're going to run into some issues.
There's what you get.
There are other examples too, but there's even some instances where there are Covenants that have abilities that are actually just the best choice in all situations. It is actually balancing out that way.
I would have never expected that.
Now, the impact here
Who
on
would have
spec
ever
swapping
expected
is
that?
already extremely obvious. It does kind of spit in the face of class identity over spec identity.
Nobody could have ever predicted this.
Your effectiveness, right, in a given piece of content, that should be defined by your skill and, of course, your willingness to progress your character in that way. I would say not a choice that you made for an entirely different reason. I think that locking abilities away based on the Covenants, that does add stakes to the decision, but I think in a way that doesn't really feel good. It's not a bonus, it just kind of feels like you're picking a talent permanently. Now, we already choose our class, we already choose our spec, the spec that we gear for, the consumables we buy, the legendaries we go after. How much more are we kind of sacrificing with layered and layered systems here? I mean, we've largely focused on what it feels like to pick this just for the player without touching on the wider community. We will get on the wider community soon enough, because even that is something that is very important to address on its own. But it is as simple as this. The player experience of this system, I think, broadly will be more negative than Blizzard think. I think it has been on beta. I think it will be on live. Blizzard, I think, should be able to see this, and they should be able to make some form of decision decently soon. And I do think they're running out of time here. And there are so many...
It's not hard. I think so. I think a lot of people will probably have a worse experience knowing that they're handicapping themselves. Even people that choose to go with the Covenant that, that fits like what they feel like their character would choose or what they want to go for with like an aesthetic perspective, I think a lot of them will feel a certain amount of disappointment that they know that they're handicapping themselves. They'll feel stupid for doing it to some degree, and they'll resent it to some degree. Like, you're gonna get like the uber casuals that just don't care at all, and like this is the problem, right? Is that the uber casuals that don't care at all, it doesn't matter what you do. It makes no difference, because they're going to play the game no matter what. If Covenant abilities are player related or power related or not, this doesn't matter to them, because they're just going to play the game super casual regardless. This is not a factor that makes them decide if they want to play the game or not. They're just going to log on and talk to their friends and sit around in Goldshire or Moonguard or whatever the fuck they want to do, and just play the game and do world quests. So it doesn't matter what direction Blizzard takes this in, those people are going to be happy regardless. So to try to appeal to people that this is not even a factor for is silly. It's silly, because they're not going to care to begin with. I think they should focus on the people that are being vocal about this, because I think they're the ones that are going to be negatively affected.
Positives to be gained from covenant choice. Being locked to a covenant that you choose will, I think, by default, be a meaningful experience. Because by virtue of having to pick a covenant, well, you're going to pick the one that is just better for you, you feel more drawn to. And that means you're going to be spending more time in the covenant that you chose and the zone that you chose with a group of people who made the same choice as you. And there are so many ways that, that choice does feel good as a player, especially over time. And we all loved, say, class halls because they represented our class, the ideas and the fantasy of what drew you to your class. Covenants really do have that same potential. I think that's a very exciting thing. But tying them so visibly and importantly to player power, I think is going to make them worse, not better.
I would agree with that.
The core of the choice, I think, should be based on the aesthetic, the ideology, and the characters. What draws you in personally. Everything else is extra. And I think when you tie the gameplay in there, that actually detracts from the choice. And honestly, choosing one at the expense of others doesn't even make that much sense. And this is something that's really...
That's another thing, is like the lore, it makes no fucking sense. At least from my perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And on top of that, I do think that's true. It actually, attaching player power to it removes the choice for a lot of people, because most people are just going to choose what's best. It's like, okay, well, which one do you want to go with? All right, I go with the one that's good. So for all of the people that are, player power and like numerically focused, for everybody who cares about doing a lot of damage, for everybody who cares about being able to perform the best in PvP, PvE, all of these other things, for every single one of those people, their choice has just been deleted. So wherever you had a covenant choice, they don't have a choice anymore because they want to play the game at the optimum level. So I actually think it's taking away choice from a lot of different people. So what? Well, so don't engineer systems that create pseudo choices that end up punishing players for things that they might not even know.
Important. Whenever people say, that, this covenant choice is something that's really deep and meaningful, they're basically being disingenuous, because lore-wise, all the covenants are allied against the mob. Yeah. And you even get, if you're in the Venthyr, you will get a daily quest to defend Maldraxxus.
Look at that.
Right? So it's really you just choosing
but just
which
don't join
one of
their
these
covenant.
4 groups of friends
Can't
do you
do
want
that.
to properly side with, than you making some sort of Aldor versus Scryer tier choice in terms of how much these factions canonically hate each other.
Exactly.
So in a world where it feels like you're just picking which one of your friends you want to hang out with more, how does it make any sense for these abilities to be locked in this way? What are we really gaining from that? There's basically nothing meaningful from that choice other than who do you want to hang out with the most. It's not the sort of thing that is reflected in the game world and really in the story, at least thus far, in the initial thrust of Shadowlands, which, by the way, is what people will be playing on launch day.
Yes.
Now, if Blizzard plans to do something later on in the expansion to make the player's choice feel important in retrospect...
I think that's a huge fucking mistake, because if you make people's choices feel important in retrospect by making the story advance in different ways, and like kind of you're kind of misleading people. So I don't really think that's a good idea either. And also the idea that like the beginning of the expansion is going to be rough and then it'll get better over time, I think that's the worst possible thing for Blizzard to do, because the beginning of the expansion is everybody's first impressions of the expansion. People think Battle for Azeroth is garbage because most of them played it for the first couple of months and it sucked. Like, they haven't played 8.2 even. They haven't played any of the other rest of the game. They just played the beginning. Like, first impressions matter a lot. So I think that the beginning of the expansion matters even more than anything else in a lot of ways. It still sucks. Yeah, but they don't know that it sucks. They just assume it.
Then I think this whole argument gets even more strong, right? If Blizzard truly do double down there on those RPG elements and make it like a big choice that you'd make in, say, Baldur's Gate or, whatever type of RPG. The choice, I think, should be based on the intangible things, the aesthetics, the characters, the ideology. I think that's what the RPG part of World of Warcraft is today, at least when we talk about the lore and the story.
I would agree with that.
The mechanics, Blizzard have designed them so far to be pretty separate from the RPG beast, and that's just a tricky thing where the rubber meets the road in regards to how the game is realistically played today. Now, I'm going to run a thought experiment with you here, just to sort of show a bit of the point of what would happen if Blizzard actually made the Covenant choice matter a bit more. So you've maxed out your renown with the Necrolords, okay? And you've picked them because, you know, the ability that they had was the most fun or did the most damage. Okay.
Yes,
Come 9.1 and realizing that narratively there was really no consequence for which Covenant you chose, Blizzard decide that 9.1 is actually a situation where the Covenants are driven to war.
Oh,
now, the thing is, you originally wanted to join the Night Fae because you just liked the nature-y stuff going on in Ardenweald, but
then you have to
their
kill your
ability was
boys.
weak in all scenarios, so you went with the Necrolords. By the way, that'll probably happen to a lot of people anyway. But now, you've got to show up at their base and start murdering the fairies as a part of your Covenant campaign. Now, you still need to stick with the Necrolords because of the ability and the balance. But now you just have to kind of wreck the place you really wanted to defend. So this actually gets really quite messy when, you know, in an RPG perspective, as this player power is tied into the Covenants in a situation where Blizzard would want to make the RPG aspect of, say, the Covenants going to war or there being major disagreements between them actually be reflected in the in-game story, which right now is something they're not doing. So it is a bit weird where I keep on hearing people say, RPG, great consequences. There are none. And if there were some, it would actually make some of this stuff...
No, Blizzard just invented that. They invented this problem, and now they're solving it. They're solving the problem that they invented. I don't know what to say, man. I really don't know what to say. It's so weird to me. It really is. It's so absolutely fucking weird to me. It's so, yeah, I just... And it's like an ideological thing that they created that never existed. Like in Legion, this did not really exist. Like you had to make a choice of like putting relics in your weapons, but oftentimes you had different relics for different weapons anyway. Like it was just, God, dude. Okay.
A little bit more iffy. Now, the other problem, and one that is massively negative to players, is the conduit situation.
Oh yeah, the 1 week.
You're only allowed to switch which conduits are in your soulbind once per week. And this puts players...
Who asked for this? Like, who was like, oh yeah? Who asked? Like, nobody wanted this. Why? Like, yeah, oh no, we're gonna have to go respec every boss. Then don't. If some people want to be able to do that, should you make the entire game different? Should you change the entire game for the entire player base? Because some raiders might have to go back to their fucking Covenant hold to respec 2 talents to gain 0.2 DPS for a farm clear? Are you fucking kidding me? So they can clear heroic? Give me a fucking break.
In a pretty difficult spot, especially for those who, yes, are actually wanting to min-max a bit, or maybe people who are just playing multiple specs on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Now you might be thinking, there are 3 soulbinds. That means 1 for each spec. What's the problem? Technically, yes, but soulbinds aren't just the conduits you put in them. The soulbind trees have their own benefits, and some of those can be very powerful or have a great improvement to quality of life. Now, here's an example that shows a real pain point.
Okay,
Druids
here we go.
have 4 specs, but there's only 3 soulbinds. Now, Druids playing all 4 specs might be rare, but you can kind of imagine, right, a player who
forgot about that one, huh?
Is flexing, you know, healing and tanking between friend groups for their weekly Mythic Plus, and then maybe playing, you know, Boomkin for Raid, Feral for PvP. One of those specs is going to be majorly disadvantaged per week because it won't actually have space for its conduits. More generally, though,
fuck Druids, though. It's okay if they get messed up.
To heal to accommodate a specific raid comp, I think that shouldn't come with penalties that feel as arbitrary as these ones do.
They certainly do.
To gear, skill, and conduits should be enough. And I think given the nature of conduits, like, some limitation does make sense, right? They are a powerful and impactful thing. I just think that a week is a pretty insane cooldown to do. So it's this thing where I do actually think that, you know, getting the Covenant or the conduits, leveling them up, getting the higher ranks of them.
I don't like it because you can't test out the abilities. Like, I want to go and use the different abilities. It's cool to just respec and try out another ability. Like, there's no testing at all. I don't understand it. I don't get this at all. Classes shouldn't be broken. Yeah, I don't get this. It's just so weird to me. Punishment for playing the game? Almost.
Is going to be a great experience. But I do just think that players will naturally want to change a bit more than the game is currently letting them. And I would say maybe let's just do it once a day instead. So it's that thing where, you know, the conduits,
just
they
like a
are
gold
powerful,
respec
they
or something.
are impactful. Building up
I'd be
your
fine with that.
conduits to be what you actually want for your spec,
a gold
I think
respec
will
would be
pretty
fine in my
satisfying.
mind.
So I think that's going to be a good experience most of the time for plenty and plenty of players. But, right, it is an avenue of player power. And people will want to change them and maybe need to change them regularly.
They will.
Right now, they just can't on an arbitrary 1-week timer.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked very much thus far about how this impacts the player. But this is, of course, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. It's an MMORPG, so let's talk about the MMO. Ian talked to Preach.
I think that's one of the problems is, like, they talk a lot about the RPG element, but what about the MMO? Like, that's what I feel like. I feel like they're adding things that are like, that put those two things at odds with each other. You know, it's like you've got RPG on one side and MMO on the other side. I need to take a piss, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, boys. We're back.
About the imagined scenario where people are declined from groups because of their covenant choice. Now, this is not imaginary at all. This is a real experience that players will have every day with classes and specs being suited to different forms of content. Bad classes are not necessarily declined, but they are picked less, you know, often sort of held for last, right? That is a thing that happens in the game, even right now.
It happened more in Classic, but yeah, it still happens
now. Fill in that last spot of their Mythic Plus group is guilty of this. I've definitely held off, you know, for a better option. I'm looking for a better, like an extra DPS, right? And maybe that wasn't the right choice. Maybe that Shaman would have done just fine, but statistically, it's more likely that the Mage at the same item level will do a bit more damage, so people are going to wait and hold back for the Mage. That's the thing.
Yes! Fucking duh! Thank you, Bellular. Thank you for saying the obvious goddamn thing. Yes, statistically, certain classes are just going to do more damage. Yeah, they're just, why didn't you wash your hands? Because I got a clean dick. Yeah, duh. What do you mean?
That happens. Finding groups as a pug is already a nightmare, and every step Blizzard makes in this direction will hurt the game more for people who just want to pug occasionally. So let's talk about the trickle-down effect. Is it kind of sad that it exists sometimes and that things are not applied really in a sensible way where they should be? Yes, but ultimately, we do have to live in this thing called the real world.
Ooh, I don't like that.
We live in 2020, right?
Ooh, even worse.
I wish we didn't sometimes. World of Warcraft, though, is played in modern times by modern people, and that means that it is modern meta gaming, okay?
That's exactly right. It's like Blizzard's trying to make the game for, like, 1996 gamers. They're like, oh yeah, Ripper, like, yeah, we're just gonna go and play the game, dude, have fun. It's just fucking nuts.
That's how it all goes. That means visiting community sites
the mindset.
for information.
Yeah, look at
guides.
this is what people do.
If you want to do half decently,
exactly.
You kind of need Blood Mallet at the very least, and man, if you've got raid bots, your life is going to be so much easier. I mean, that's what it's been for the last while. Wellheads and Icy Veins, though, they have millions of hits to their class guides, okay? People want to know how they can play this game the best that they can. Why?
Of course.
Because they want to do well for their friends and do well in their group.
Because they don't
or
want to
maybe
suck.
They just want a big DPS
exactly.
meter. We all do. Now, the argument that
Except
this
for me. Mine's big
is
enough.
somehow playing the game wrong, that, you know, caring about those things and researching your class, that's wrong, I think that's absurd.
See, thank you, dude. Thank you. This is the same fucking shit that we gotta hear all the time. Like, we have to hear this all the time for these casual Andes. Yes, thank you, dude.
Especially when the game has got just so many complex interactions, just with so many statistics and hidden mechanics and layers and layers and layers of systems, as we do see in Shadowlands. I mean, if you want the most from your character, especially recently, you just got to give raid bots a few dollars a month. Ultimately, that is just the cold, hard truth of a game that's as mathematical in nature as World of Warcraft is, especially with Shadowlands, as you do have
every other
all
game's
your
like
conduits,
this too.
with all your soul binds, all the ranks of the conduits, your legendaries, and then the fact that secondary stats now have diminishing returns as you get more and more of them. yeah, it's definitely going to be pushing people towards that way.
Oh yeah, I
mode
didn't
being
talk
a bit
about
of a
that.
simmer,
Oh well.
Of playing the game, and ultimately, I think a lot of people who don't do simming, they think of a simmer as somebody who's really nerdy and really getting into the spreadsheets. Yeah. Most of the time, it's people copy-pasting a thing into raid bots and then just seeing what the bot will spit out and tell them to do.
They think it's like a fucking complex computational fucking trigonometry bullshit. You're just like, yeah, so what do I get this trinket or that one? I get that one? Okay, thanks. And that's it. Yeah, it's not like there's a lot of fucking, high-end brain magic going on here. It's pretty fucking clear.
It really is quite simple, very accessible, and done by a massive amount of the players.
Exactly.
Very importantly, by all of the players who are the thought leaders and the trendsetters when it comes to how gameplay is done in WoW. And that does invoke that trickle-down effect. So when you've got all these rigid things going on, I do have to wonder if the less risky thing to do is just to, well, go with a little bit more choice in gameplay, so that people don't feel as locked in. And you know what? When we actually get to talking about how Blizzard's track record is faring these days in balancing these game systems, I think you're really going to see why this makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
But before we do that, let's explain who is behind PullTheRipcord and really who is pushing for it most.
Okay.
I think the most notable proponent of this movement is one of Limit's DPS players.
See this guy.
In seeing the same issues arise, then of course plenty of
Legion, grinding AP to play multiple specs. BFA, collecting multiple Azerite armor sets to play multiple specs. Shadowlands, 1 week conduit CD so you can never play multiple specs and are being locked into one of 4 abilities that has different interactions with specs. See, I'm so glad that like a lot of these people that have actually played the game a lot, know a lot about the game, are being vocal about this, and it's not just me. Yeah, thank God this guy is actually talking about this stuff and really getting his opinion out there. Like, this would be fucking great. I'm very glad about this.
Significantly in agreement. Over in the YouTube land, of course, Preach has really been calling for this. I mean, so have I. It's the sort of thing where, I know I've got less credibility as, being that type of player than Mike does, but it is something that we both identified pretty much at the start. Fairly sure I made a video directly after Shadowlands BlizzCon about concerns on this. Yeah. And when Alpha was announced, but before Alpha came out, and Blizzard actually unveiled some of these abilities, I think I made the video was called "This is going to be Azerite gear all over again" or something like that.
I hope I'm wrong.
This is something that a lot of people have been talking about.
It's like the best part about that, dude, is like that face is exactly how I think everybody fucking feels about the Covenant shit. That fucking face, like, oh, like, oh shit, it just, that's the first fucking thing that I think of. Like, that, it's so perfect, man.
Year all over again or something like that. So this is something that a lot of people have been talking about for really quite a lot of time. And while a lot of the more high-end players in the game are, I would definitely say, the tip of the spear, I think there's a lot more people. And I think what we really need to do right now in this video is to debunk a BS straw man that I see in so many comments.
Let's dispel this
just
rumor.
The top 1%. It's not. That's being a bit disingenuous. It's not just min-maxers. Now,
that's right.
It is the situation where, yes, the Mythic Raiders and the top PvPers
are... Of course they're going to be the ones that are most vocal because they're the most affected by it. But yeah, I hate the fucking thing, like, that people are like, oh yeah, the vocal minority of people doesn't like this, but there's actually this, like, fucking super secret silent majority of people who thinks this is great. Maybe not. Like, maybe that's not true. Maybe this invisible fucking group of people that's so big that you can't quantify at all, maybe they're just not there. Maybe they don't exist. I don't know. It's so insane to me, man. The majority, or the majority doesn't care. I think that's probably the best fucking analysis there. It's not that the majority has any fucking opinion one way or another. They don't give a fuck. They're like, I just want to play the game, bro. They're bringing back Arthas? Oh, shit, man. Give me my card. I'm going to buy this game. This is going to be good, dude. Like, they don't give a fuck. It's like, Do a poll? Why? So people can vote and troll? I don't care. Like, the thing is, a poll. So if I do a poll, how is that also not the vocal minority? Like, it's just such a logically fucking vapid statement. It's amazing that it's like the silent majority phrase is like fucking, it's like political.
Signal boosting players who, you know, think like they do and agree. And a lot of those people do have an audience that watches them because, you know, that audience is kind of interested in the game in the same way that a lot of these top end people are. Yes, that audience does follow people like, say, Preach, maybe because they agree with them. But I do think it's no coincidence, right, that they are the most engaged type of World of Warcraft player in general.
That is true.
I think that's
because they play the game all the fucking time.
These very visible players aren't really asking for preferential treatment. I would characterize this as them being canaries in the coal mine. They were with Titan Forging, they were with Legion Legendaries, they were with Azerite Armor, they were with Essences, they were with Corruption. If you look at basically,
that's actually such a good fucking analysis. That's such a good metaphor that Bellular is using here. These high-end players are the fucking canaries because they understand the game better and they're able to perceive the problems that will manifest themselves whenever these systems become widespread or mainstream. This is such a good fucking analogy. And I keep saying analogy when I mean the same metaphor, but it doesn't fucking matter. You know what I'm trying to say. Okay? Yes, exactly. The people that are complaining about this stuff, like Preach has had a very good track record. Preach didn't like Legion Legendaries. The game came out, and neither did anybody else, unless you got the two best ones, like I did. It was pretty fucking cool. But besides that, it's just, it sucked. And yeah, these high-end players have been right about this stuff every single time.
Most of the people who talk about WoW and are very deep into WoW, what happened? A lot of us quite quickly went against Thunder Forging and then War Forging and then Titan Forging.
I was mad, Legion dude. I hated that shit.
That was like a massive day one concern. I remember being dislike bombed into oblivion for coming out against Legion Legendary acquisition back then. Azerite Armor, that's something a lot of us talked about as well. Essences, Corruptions, I mean...
I like Essences.
There's been a lot. And here's
Corruptions
the thing.
Can
These
be
were
cool.
all controversial systems that hurt players up until Blizzard were forced to introduce some form of fix. And in every case,
because people wanted it from the beginning. I thought Corruptions were cool. Like, I think there's a lot of good things about Corruptions. It's not like they're all bad. Obviously, they're not all good either, but I think that there are some good things about Corruptions.
Blizzard implemented that fix far too late to really mitigate the damage. These were concerns that this type of player had, but that are felt across the entire player base just to a bit less of a degree.
Yeah.
And I think it's the usability issues and those sorts of frustrations with this system that will be felt by everybody. And it might seem like these people are blowing things out of proportion by bringing it up literally every day.
I get told that every day.
That's just because they're the most passionate about
World
of Warcraft. And this is something that will impact all of us to some degree.
Yes.
And any positives, as I think we've established.
This will be a cock in the ass to the player base from the day that it's implemented to the day that it dies. It will just be, that's what it will be. That's all it will be. Just one more cock in the ass. And I don't want to deal with another one. We've got enough already.
Aren't really going to be worth it because, again, it barely matters in game, and anyone who says that it does matter is being completely disingenuous because they've not actually looked at the content. And there's no situation where it's like, you know, oh, I've chosen the Kyrians and now I've really, you know, the Venthyr have got it in for me. And no, there's none of that stuff going on. I mean, if you choose the Kyrians, you'll get a daily quest to go and protect Revendreth. It's not much of a choice. Now, this choice will feel vastly better to players if the vast majority of, you know, the abilities and stuff are just not tied to the Covenants. And, you know, the lore and customization elements will feel better if they're divorced from gameplay and people actually get to make those choices about who their character is based on, funny enough, who their character is and not what a bunch of external things sort of makes somebody think their character has to be able to do.
Yeah.
I think the game will be better balanced as a whole as well if players have the freedom to choose. Because, let's be real, Blizzard... okay, I'll say the StarCraft 2 team, great at balancing. The World of Warcraft team...
for the most part.
They probably are great at balancing too. But what I will say is they're also great at making systems so complicated they can't balance them. So I do think that if the game was just a bit more simple and we had less layers and layers and layers of systems, that WoW would actually have really great balance. But I do think that with how Blizzard just layers those systems on top of each other, they create a situation where it's just really hard for them to balance the game. And I have got to imagine that that takes up a lot of development time.
Exactly. Because they're going to spend all the fucking time in Shadowlands instead of making good content. Oh, how can we make the fucking, the Venthyr Warlock ability be balanced against the Night Fae DK ability? How can we do this? Maybe we rebalance this, you know, and they sit down and they figure this shit out. And instead of actually making more content, they're going to spend all their fucking time trying to figure out how to balance and incentivize a system that nobody fucking wanted. I just... Oh my god. Oh my fucking god.
I mean, it's
Symbiosis multiplied by 10.
Scary thinking about the number of tuning knobs that they've got to deal with when it comes to any given class or spec in WoW. Now, I personally don't care about pushing keys for hours.
No, I can't imagine
going for Warcraft logs rankings? No, I don't care.
I used to care.
But that doesn't mean that I won't feel like I want to pick the best ability or the one that makes the most sense for the situation I'm going to be in. I'm not the type of person who's going to want to switch conduits for every boss. I didn't reforge my Azerite for everything I was going to do in BFA. No way would I do that. Too much money.
Exactly.
But, you know, when I unlock a new conduit and I can't equip it until like the next weekly reset, that's going to suck. That doesn't feel good.
It's a big
come on, think about Blizzard's justification for removing reforging. They just wanted you to be able to use the cool thing and not have to go through a bunch of hoops and jumping through things.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what player you are, I think there's very little to lose and lots to gain by sort of supporting PullTheRipcord. Now, I'm not saying supporting people who are being dickheads about it. No, we don't need to do that. But I think it's just cutting through to the issue and actually thinking about it. Really, this is a situation where there's this schism in the player base that I think is just something that doesn't need to exist. I think we broadly are all on the same side, and I think that the lowest risk thing for Blizzard to do, which would be to PullTheRipcord, would have literally zero downside for anyone, because that does not make WoW more of an RPG. There's like barely...
And that's one thing, is like, that's what I keep trying to fucking emphasize with this, is that exactly what he said, is that there's no downside to anybody else. The only downside is if they do it. Not doing it doesn't create a downside. It's like you can either force a system that's oppressive and restrictive, or you can not do it. I don't know. It seems like such an obvious decision.
Anywhere where your Covenant stuff is reflected like in a sort of RPG-like manner in terms of, you know, narrative and story and vibe. It's just which campaign do you get to do? But it's just not something that's really that deep. You'll just have, you know, whatever campaign you do and a few more buffs in your own zone, but it's kind of it, you know? It's not really... It's underwhelming. I at least thought that if we were going this hardcore into our Covenant lock, that it would feel like this pretty damn unique experience. But in that regard, I was kind of disappointed when I saw what was actually there. So I totally understand people wanting that to be a super major thing that impacts your character in so many ways. But it's so core to your identity. What I will say is, in terms of what Blizzard have actually made, it ain't that. It doesn't really feel like that. It's just we kind of have this arbitrary, you know, ability thing. It's basically just that, and what campaign you want to do and what, you know, cosmetics and vibes you like as a person. Good example, I like Night Fae, but man, the Night Fae abilities are just trash.
He likes Night Fae?
On so many. And there's even, I think, is it for the Hunters, where the Night Fae one is just so bugged. It doesn't work with like a whole bunch of abilities, and it's just this stuff that's really messy and shouldn't be this messy at this stage in the game. But okay,
possible
let's talk about solutions.
Okay,
at the end
all right,
of the day,
let's see about this.
It's not really about who's right or who's wrong. It's about making the game better. That's
the one thing, is like, I feel like a lot of the conversations in WoW, and this is everything, right? Like politics, fucking, you know, any sort of people that are talking about something, they never actually want to make what they're talking about better. They want to beat the people who they're disagreeing with. It's not about finding a solution. It's about seeing that the other person is wrong. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to make the game. I just want the game to be good, right? Like, that's my goal. Like, I just want the game to be good. Please just make the game good. Do that, I'm happy.
And I'd say it's a situation where, look, if something doesn't really affect somebody but is like a net positive in general, and it doesn't really cause you a downside, I mean, what's to lose by supporting it. That's why I do think
Big
some
true,
form
so
of
real.
Ripcord is likely the pragmatic thing to do, even though I'm not the type of player who is massively affected by this. That said, I do know if I'm playing a DH, and yeah, I go for that Night Fae ability, which is basically trash, unless like you're in PvP. You know, that's maybe
so
some of my
big and
guilds are
so
gonna be like,
real
"Come
and
on,
so
dude.
true.
We're trying to do Mythic Plus.
There
Why
it
do
is,
that?"
dude.
To which point I'm just going to be like, yeah, well,
There
you
it
know,
is.
I'm field testing these systems, I guess. But anyway, let's talk about solutions.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
to that end,
What's your solutions?
arguing, I think, back and forward about catering overtly to certain types of players evokes this sort of zero-sum game, right? We've got the winners and the losers. Instead, I think we should try to help Blizzard solve problems.
That is such a smart thing to say. What an incredibly smart thing to say. Wow. Truly brilliant.
And overall here, I do think that the most elegant solution is a simple compromise. It's so simple. Keep the signature abilities tied to the Covenant because, you know, they're so flavorful. They are pretty cool. Sometimes they're tied to the Soulbinds as well. But I would then say, just try making the Covenant class abilities swappable in rest zones after earning them. I think this would be really an easy fix. The signature abilities are primarily utility, right? They're utility-based, and they will rarely affect throughput. Now, they do have vastly different use.
What do you guys think about that? I'd be fine with that. Yeah, I would be fine with that. That would be good. Like, and like, let's say the abilities are still OP, then deal with it later. But that would be fine. Yeah, that would be okay.
There's things like, say, Door of Shadows, right? That will be really interesting for dungeon skips. A lot of people will want to do that.
Same with the Maldraxxus
could mean that it
thing.
might feel mandatory in Mythic Plus, which would be a bit sad, but if that did happen, then what could Blizzard's fix be? If they still wanted some form of Covenant ability lock, well, I think it could maybe be to allow players interesting ways to make up for those weaknesses, maybe via items. So instead of needing Door of Shadows to skip something, maybe offer an engineering or inscription item that's some sort of short range.
That does the
blink and
same
make it
thing.
decently expensive with a long cast time that's only usable
I don't want to be able to do that, though.
You know, it's not an
I don't want to have that.
It does actually have weaknesses because you're not using Door of Shadows, but
don't
you
want
really
to
need
see
to
it.
do that trash skip. You can. You could do something like that. And then as for the actual Covenant class abilities, well, to be honest with you, the current system doesn't really work that well. It really doesn't work that well at all. A great example is it's the Mage Venthyr one, right? Where, you know, ostensibly it's really not that good, but then you put one conduit in and bam, it's super powerful. But the thing is, you don't know about the conduit until you've, you know, like hit max level probably actually.
That I don't like. I think the way that they have like the deciding factors on like these things, they make players make decisions on what is good before players would have like naturally the tools to make the determination of what is good. Like they have to make a decision. They're basically asking players to write a blank check. And I don't like that.
Up for the Covenant, maybe earned some renown, got through your Soulbinds. So you're not really going to know unless you're the type of player who's reading guides and stuff.
Yeah, you gotta look it up and
everything. There's loads of Covenant abilities that suck in world gameplay, right? And that's just not their design. They're designed for more of a Mythic Plus or raiding or PvP situation.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Ultimately, the only time where you get to test run these things before you make the big decision is when you're leveling up through the zones. And that does mean that a lot of players are going to have a decently skewed perspective of what these abilities are. And I have to wonder if that would actually be something that would quite massively impact how many people actually sign up with each Covenant. So that stuff right now is, I think, really quite messy and just annoying. I don't really think it's working out that well. Now, a degree of that's also because
I think that's true too.
Abilities, which
that's definitely very big and real, and also true.
The spec is really important for most of your gameplay. But the thing is, as well,
so agreed.
Canonically, it doesn't even make sense for the Covenant abilities to be exclusive after you leave, because you got to remember what the leveling up process of Shadowlands is.
You go to the different zones.
You're a hero to each one of these Covenants.
Yeah, because you can go to them all.
When you land in any of these zones, it's a bad time, right?
Yeah.
The Covenants are struggling.
Exactly.
They've got barely any anima, you know, they're withering away. They're worried that they'll not be able to fulfill their function in the Shadowlands. The Pantheon of Death will crumble, and Zoval will do something bad to the whole lot of us, right? That is like the narrative framing. And what you basically do is you save all their asses. So the narrative basically is that you are friend and hero to all Covenants. So narratively, why are we locking them off anyway? I mean, certainly it wouldn't feel weird to players if, you know, each covenant sort of bestowed onto the player some power they could use, which would then be, you know, which ability do you want to select? So I would actually say,
I still think you should be able to switch the signature ability even, right? And like just make it something that takes a while to do. Like, yeah, I mean, they're all like utility abilities. So yeah, just make it something that takes a little bit of time to do. Yeah, and that's it. I don't know, maybe like an hour or something, 2 hours, and you can just swap over. It's not that hard.
Just unlocking the ability for finishing the main quests and dungeons would be good, right? I think that'd be really organic. And then, you know, in a later patch, players could maybe earn a way, you know, with their covenant to make, you know, other abilities match that covenant's aesthetic. So maybe if you're a warrior, you could get a blue-tinged condemn, you know.
That'd be really cool.
You know, you're trilling the path when you've got that done. You could do little things like that. You know, consequences, right? It's one way to differentiate between options, but I think sometimes choices are more meaningful when they're made without something super tangible to gain, right? Like a personal example for me is, I want to do Night Phase, a Demon Hunter, but all signs point towards being Venthyr with the Venthyr class ability being the best thing to do by a huge margin.
What a surprise.
That's what it seems like right now.
What a surprise.
And that does mean that there's what I want to do based on, you know, my expression of myself in World of Warcraft and RPG.
Yes.
And then that has to clash with, well,
what's best?
The realities
the
of
numerically
World
best
of Warcraft
option.
as Blizzard have designed it.
Of course.
And why? Well, it's because, you know, I feel like I'm being punished for doing what I want because basically of how I don't mean unbalanced in terms of numbers. I mean unbalanced in terms of like just design and them being super different.
Yes.
The team have designed those abilities to do. And there are actually cases like this one as an example where they just literally are unbalanced, which is, you know, a problem we've been dealing with for a while in WoW, but, you know, still is a problem here. Now, while we're also here, let's propose some sort of solution for conduit switching. Blizzard, again, could just compromise here. If they want...
Just make it cost gold. That's, in my opinion, that's what I think they should do. Just make it cost fucking gold. Or you have to do, like, a daily quest or something like that. You have to do Emissary, you can reset it. Just make it cost gold.
To keep them limited...
It's not that hard.
Then, what could they do? They could just make you... just daily instead of weekly, right?
That would be better. I'd say that for sure.
You can go in your Mythic Plus spec.
That'd be a lot better.
If you're doing Raid Night, you can do it in your Raid version. Why not do that? Why would that be so hard, right? I mean, a very Blizzard solution would be to tie it to an otherwise important currency to de-incentivize players from switching it all the time for min-maxing. They could do that, or I think they could just limit it daily, which, as I said, would just let you
I would not
have
like
a lot more
daily,
freedom
but I would be
just
more okay with
around.
it.
You know, Mythic Plus night, PvP night, Raiding night,
I mean, I think anybody would be more okay with it.
Not going to be sort of locked into this 1 week-long cooldown period that just will kind of arbitrarily punish you. And, you know, they've designed, like, I mean, they've designed a system that's functionally just another layer on top of existing systems, but then they've just added arbitrary limits. And I think the thing is that, you know, why can we change our talents and our essences with a tome, but not our conduits? Why?
There's no reason.
You know, at the end of the day, what is that? That's just tinkering with my character to make it do what I want to do. It just feels weird that different parts of that process have got very different and seemingly arbitrary, like, limitations put on.
Well, that's because they are arbitrary. Oh, we got it right in the scene change. Look at that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it is. Yeah, it's just time gating. Like, there's no reason for this. And, like, them trying to stop, like, 1% of players from using the system in a way they don't view or fucking they don't philosophically agree with is just silly. It's just fucking silly.
So what I'd say here is don't let Shadowlands suffer purely because there's a backup available and we're going to sort of trial run the thing that probably won't work first. People argue that, you know, right, that having a backup in place for this, being able to pull a ripcord, is an admission of failure. But it's not, right?
No.
I think we put fail-safes in to mitigate damage if things go wrong, not when. I think they don't need to be afraid of backlash or, you know, failed opportunity. I think they just need to do the safe and smart thing. I think, right, it's about risk management. And I think this is a risk they don't need to take because all of the benefits of your Covenant choice come from your expression in the game. Who you vibe with the most, what aesthetics you want, what characters you are drawn the most to. That is all the positives. None of the positives comes from the abilities, in my experience of playing Shadowlands. And there's really not some sort of meaningful choice, I would say, between the Covenants. Blizzard want to make it this big thing, you know, bringing up Aldors versus Scryers. In reality, it's just choosing which gang of your mates you want to hang out with the most. That's what it feels like in terms of the established lore. Blizzard don't need to take this
as if it was even remotely close to that. It's just so it's so ridiculous.
This risk that they're taking, I think, benefits nobody. There's people who will maybe feel like their Covenant choice was a little bit more impactful because of the ability thing, but I don't think most people will. So, like, where's the benefit there? There's really not that much benefit. But then, of course, the list of reasons not to do this and the list of downsides is absolutely bloody humongous. And it's humongous in general, and it's also humongous on a class-by-class, spec-by-spec basis. Blizzard are building systems for an ideal world. And that's a world where they can balance everything. They have done this multiple expansions in a row, right? Yeah. They have to accept that the game is just a bit unbalanced, that it is going to be that, and work around
sometimes,
that.
To some degree, that's true.
To design World of Warcraft
some degree, that's definitely
true. Future where the game is very easy to balance, it's very balanceable, it's all working out well. Really, what they end up doing is they just bite off more than they can chew from a balancing department, and it's just putting a square peg into a round hole. Now, this is not me trying to... I feel
like that, yeah, that's one thing I want to say again, is like, I feel like they're going to just spend so much time trying to balance this, and I would just rather them spend the time doing something that's better with the game. Like, I don't feel like that's going to help anybody. Like, they're going to invest all of this time into balancing the system that they're just so fixated on putting into the game that it's going to cost development time and effort and resources from things that probably deserve them more.
Be disparaging or trying to be unfair towards Blizzard. The game is bloody complex, and
it sure is.
It's never really been perfectly balanced, right? That's fair enough.
Except for when Warriors were the best.
The way to do this is to give players the choices and the tools to rebalance things for themselves instead of just Blizzard saying,
that's a good way to look at it.
You are not having these choices, and do not worry, it will be balanced. If you feel like that was the wrong choice, then that's our problem. And I would say that's where I agree with Blizzard. It is their problem. What I think they're not very good at is actually solving that problem when they create it. And that is the big worry. I would say this: stop introducing systems with the intent to fix them later or to actively monitor them as they are going into the real world, as if they really need that. I would say...
I think also stop introducing systems to try to counteract human psychology. Like, that's what I think the fundamental is. They're making these systems that are designed to counteract human psychology. Stop, man. It's crazy.
Put a bit more freedom in and do not design for a perfect world. I have to imagine that the amount of thought space or just design time taken up for the people who are working in World of Warcraft every day is just eaten up by the fact that they have made these very hard to balance systems. Look at corruption. How much time did they put into fixing up corruptions and balancing corruptions and doing your your extra currency for the corruptions and your corruptions vendor and then balancing that and working out when everything should be? How much time do they spend doing that when they could have just built a less risky version of it
and just make better content and more content? Exactly.
That's why I'd say, Ian,
exactly.
pull the ripcord, right?
Please.
Those are your words.
Yes.
I hope you brought them up in a way where you felt like it was an option that you could take. I would say, please don't leave it too late. You guys are so close to an expansion that could be in a really, really great state. So when I look at the Covenants, I want to progress those. What do I want to do? I want to think about, of my characters, which one is the best fit for each one of the Covenants. I then want to level those characters up, take them through the Covenants, unlock all the nice things, do all the stuff, play around in the Queen's Conservatory, all that stuff. That's what I want to do.
So real.
That's the part of this game that I'm drawn to, that I'm excited by. It's not sitting down and thinking.
Somebody says I couldn't disagree more. Taking risks is good. Okay. It depends on the risk, doesn't it? Taking risks is not fundamentally good. So here's an example. Driving with your eyes closed is taking a risk. Should you do it? No. investing in a new company that could go really well or not. Is that a risk? Yes. Should you do it? Maybe. Taking risks is not good. Taking risks is not bad. Taking risks is good or bad depending on what the risk is and the chance of success.
Basically trying to compute the problem and then just throwing a few dollars to raid bots, which is kind of how you guys design the game. Sometimes it's almost as if like raid bots is just lobbying Blizzard to make the game more complex and more convoluted sometimes.
Yeah, so they get more money.
That's a joke. Not really, but you get my point.
That's true.
Right?
100%
so yeah,
true.
I would say this. Blizzard, I think you guys should really double down on the non-player parts or player power parts of Covenants in the future patches. I think you should make it so that I'm excited to be a Kyrian Paladin because the Kyrians are a great fit for my Paladin, and they've got a whole bunch of things
Kyrians
that I think
are
look
stupid.
really cool. They've got a bunch of characters that I love.
Nobody wants to be a
Kyrian. A great journey, and
dumb.
you know, instead of having to fiddle around balancing knobs for months and months and months, your extremely strong, you know, designers can design things for me to do.
A bunch of fucking zealots.
Stuff that's going on in the Covenant. I think that's what should be exciting about a Covenant, not just this, I think, very reductive, very much, we kind of learned the wrong lesson from Sid Meier, maybe, or, you know, we've misapplied it, right? The whole, you know, games are a series of interesting decisions or whatever, where it's like, yeah, true, but also he was making Civ a little bit different in
single
an RPG
player game
where so much of the player expression is coming in. And when a lot of the player experience is actually not based as much on game mechanics, and it's based on their emotional experience of their character and just like their character's journey, right? And what going around Ardenweald means for them or whatever. I think that it's just being more aware of that emotional aspect and having a more broad understanding of why people play the game. That would be, I think, a really important thing. And this is actually somewhere where I think Blizzard don't put enough effort in and don't really put enough time in. Now, it's been nice to see more go in there with Shadowlands, and I think for a lot of people
they're doing much better.
Would be the least affected by Pull the Ripcord. I think those people would actually be best served if we actually did pull the Ripcord, the game was just a bit more simple, and Blizzard were more freed up to make content and exciting things.
Imagine making
content. So there you go. That's
imagine making content rather than micro-balancing convoluted systems that you've invented. Imagine
that's my thoughts on Pull the Ripcord.
Who could ever do that?
It's been 42 minutes. I plan to go to IKEA today, and I don't think I'm going to be able to because it's probably going to be closed. So there you go. That's the cost of talking about Covenant abilities.
Hey, it is what it is.
Tomorrow instead. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I really am very interested to see what everybody thinks about this issue and also the discourse around it. Those are things I'm interested in. So let me know. Thanks for listening, or should I say thanks for bearing with me. And with that, I will see you next time.
Thank you, Bellular. I appreciate that. I'll see you next time, too. So true and so real. I've never seen I've never seen another video that was that real and that true. Except for the last video I made. But besides that, there's a video. I linked it in chat. Everybody give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it the support that it deserves. Bellular is making some good content, and I think that we all need to show a little bit of support. Should I tweet this out or not? What do you guys think? Like, I could do that. All right, hashtag. Is that it? Do I do this one right here? Is this what I should go after? What do you guys think? I just the hashtag, like no other bullshit, nothing else besides that. Just hit it. Just tweet it. All right, we just send that shit out. Boom! There it is, dude. There it is, dude. Okay, maybe tag Blizzard. They don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. It'd be just fine, okay? Yeah, there we go, boys. I didn't see, like, the thing is, I thought that fucking thing that people were typing, that pull the ripcord thing, I thought that was fucking annoying, dude. That was annoying the shit out of me. Because, like, I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. Like, what the fuck is this stupid-ass tag thing? Like, I don't even know. And so I'm very glad, man. Link the video in the tweet. Well, there's a lot of people talking about it. That's why I didn't link any specific thing with it. But I think a lot of people have seen it from Bellular's videos, so they know pretty much what I'm talking about. This is a great thing, and I'm very glad that, you know, obviously we see so many people that are being vocal and actually trying to fix this situation, because I think that Blizzard does need to do this. Let me read the rest of these comments, and then we're going to go ahead. We're going to do a few runs of the Trial of Style. Then after that, I have a lot of unboxing to do in New World. Class order halls should be a permanent thing every expansion. It was such a great addition. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't make class order halls more permanent. It was kind of dumb. I thought they were really cool too. I want to know why Blizzard took our classic style talent systems away, but since Legion keep giving them back to us in worse versions. Druid who plays all 4 specs is quite rare. It's me. I think a lot of people do. One thing I've noticed following various online games for years, if there's massive backlash about something, you should probably at least adjust a few things as a developer. Otherwise, you're just pushing the problem further into the future. I think to some degree that's true. Not always, but to some degree that is true. Yeah, just let people play normally, man. Nothing immerses me more in an RPG than seeing my angel wannabe friend doing 10% more damage than my sorry-ass vampire wannabe. Honestly, God of War could learn something from this RPG design. God, I hope they do listen. Unholy DK playing in Fairyland. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, that's isn't one of the major critiques of retail is the fact that classes all have the same utility. Everyone has a lifesteal, a stun, and so on a blink. Covenant abilities are literally taking on this problem directly. Make your decision matter. No, because like you're conflating 2 different things. So here's an example. If somebody's arm hurts and you cut off their arm, if somebody's hand hurts, excuse me, and you cut off their arm, well, their hand doesn't hurt anymore. But you cut off their fucking arm. Just because something solves one problem doesn't mean that it's good. Like, just because you're solving a problem by creating another problem or doing something that's bad as well doesn't mean that it's automatically good. That's at least like my perspective on it. Let's see here. It upsets me that I have to do a better ability for the DK. My armor will look like a tree and I will turn into a fox. How thematic for an anti-paladin type of character. Puts me right off the game. Yeah, it's fucking weird. It's so weird how hard they're sticking to covenants as they are. I'm at the point now where the top specs I want to play, a major consideration for me is which specs have their best utility in covenants. Well, they're sticking with it because it's on the box. Blizzard doesn't want to go back on something that's on the box because it's on the box. And they've been sitting and thinking about this for over a year in their fucking, you know, their Zoom meetings, talking about how great all their ideas are. And now whenever the player base sees them and they don't like them, Blizzard is having a hard time reconciling that. I understand it. It makes sense. Yeah, it's Dance Studio. That was a joke, though. I don't think they're really taking that very seriously, dude. At least I don't think so. They always go back to something in a box. Yeah, I don't know. Decisions made in gameplay design have been very questionable for years now. This is nothing new. Yeah, I'm glad that people are calling it out, though. I miss the days of just getting new spells and talents by leveling the class. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine this. So you're playing your character, and your character, you play it, and then it gets like these new talents and everything. And then you just have the talents. So, like, you level up. It's like, dude, the new level cap is fucking 80. Bro, whenever you hit 80, you're going to get a new ability. What, bro? Really? Yeah, dude. Like, you're going to be able... Dude, you're going to get this other ability. You get Bladestorm, man. Like, bro, you can use Titan's Grip. That's crazy. So what do I have to do? Like, just get 80, man. That's it. Just play the game. Like, I don't understand. It's that easy. Titan's Grip was insane when it came out. Yeah, it was awesome, man. They had to nerf it by 5% in Old Year. I remember that. Or Old War, excuse me. All right, I'm going to read one more. I just want Covenants to be cosmetics. Players spend a lot of time in their Covenants, so it's a meaningful choice anyway. Now the players feel bad if they make a suboptimal choice to play the Covenant or suffer through content they didn't want to play because the one ability is much stronger. When they nerf and buff different Covenant abilities during the patch cycle, players will be forced to switch and regrind a new Covenant. Yeah, I think so. People will want to do that. Not even if they feel forced to do it, but they'll just want to. Seeing the Covenant class abilities interacting with Soulbinds more makes me doubt that there will be any change in this system. Yeah, it's like, how could they possibly change the system whenever the expansion's gonna come out in less than 2 months. Like, that's what's so insane to me. The expansion comes out in 2 fucking months.